Aloha and welcome to Big Island Hawaii Ultra Show number 11. And today we interview Kym Kiser and we talk about the birth of the Dragon bike ride, for one thing, and how her and her husband Chris Kiser, they own Kiser Motorcycles, took over the Tryptophan Triathlon, which happens every Thanksgiving, a great community event. Kym is so modest and so great, and they contribute so much to our community, so I was happy that I had a chance to be able to talk to her. So please enjoy. Aloha, Kym Kiser. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Real good. Thank you.
So, Kym, I wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to talk to you because your family, and you in particular, sponsors so many events I probably don't know. This is one of them, certainly. I wore this, I think it's maybe 10 years ago,
Yeah.
the Tryptophan Triathlon. And you guys just do, Kiser Motorcycles does so much work, you know, on the island as far as charities go, as far as helping out, as far as being volunteers. And I wanted to make sure that people will know, you know, what you guys do. And a lot of times at the races and at events, we have maybe 2 or 3 minutes to talk to each other and then gotta see, bye.
Oh, for sure. No.
So explain to me, well, let's start with, where'd you grow up?
Southwest Virginia, like a really super tiny town with about 3,000 people, I think. So yeah, in the sticks, like truly in the sticks. Coal mining country.
And high school?
Same place. I stayed there, and I met Chris at a barbecue. He was passing through because he was racing motorcycles, and we exchanged phone numbers, and I thought he was cute. And that's pretty much all that happened for several months. And then I called and he says, hey, I'm passing through. Do you want to go to the movies? And we got together and kept going together. And then, yeah, I stayed with him throughout college and traveled with him when I could during the summers and on break while he was racing. And then we moved here in 94.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, from the posts and stuff that I see, the pictures that I see of you that you put out, he had quite a racing career, and you were a Sherpa back then.
Well, I didn't know anything about motorcycle racing at all, so it was all new to me. And when we first got together, he won every race I went to, and he's a professional motorcycle racer. He raced flat track racing. So it's the time when they go sideways, and they do the mile race on the horse tracks and stuff. So it's really like high speed and super dangerous. But I thought he just always won. I didn't know that he thought of me as his good luck charm. So maybe that's why we stayed together in the beginning. And because he was like won his first pro race for me being there. And it was the first race I went to. And then he won every race I went to after that. For a while. And so it was kind of funny that I just thought that was kind of normal, but I was like, wow, they're so excited, and yeah, this is cool, but wow. So it's kind of funny.
Did you do sports when you were in high school and college and stuff?
You know, I look back, especially as I started doing like marathoning early on. Well, I didn't do marathoning until I was in my 30s, but and triathlon. I did track and cross country in high school, but I look back on it and I kind of feel bad because I didn't really try, and I feel bad for my coaches. I'm like, gosh, if I even just ran the times I ran right now, this is, you know, years back in high school, they would be so proud of me because I really just did not, I went to kind of be as more of a social thing, not necessarily to be, I guess I wasn't motivated to do that well, so I didn't really care, which, but that changed over the years, of course. But yeah, so track and cross country is pretty much
What
it.
was the first marathon? Do you remember your first marathon?
Honolulu.
That's quite a well, let's see, back in even 94, 96. Yeah, it was still a big race back then.
Yeah, I did my first Honolulu, and it was 2006, I think. Was my first one, and it was. I remember we ran forever before we even got to the start line. It was like crazy. I was like, wow, I feel like we ran a mile already.
Yeah,
and watching people for the first 5 miles.
And the trick on that one, which I tell people, because I had to learn the same way, is go up right to the front, even though you may not be fast. Like
I was told that, but I was so fearful that they're just telling me that, and that's not really how you did it. And so we didn't go all the way back where our time slot was, because Chris was like, I'm telling you, because he already done it one time. He says, we got to go forward. And so we went back to an hour faster than what we actually went, which I thought was like, oh my gosh, we shouldn't be here. But we passed, I would say, for the first 3 or 4 miles, people walking. And I'm like, how are they ahead of us? And it's 3 miles in, and they're walking, holding hands, 4 across, and I'm just like, how is this possible? I mean, it's wonder if they come out from the side streets or something. That's crazy. But yeah, I learned my lesson after the first one.
Yeah, I mean, that was always the trick. Once you learn that, it's like, and me, I have asthma. So, with the fireworks that they do, I need to get past the start line. Otherwise I end up in all the fireworks smoke. Yeah. And what was the first triathlon that you can remember?
The first triathlon would be one of the Team Mango events. I just remember watching Chris do those, and Carl and Dick Campbell was helping him back then, and it was just so easy going. They're like, yeah, you should get out here and do this. I'm like, oh, I don't know. And it was just so welcoming that I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a try. And that hooked me. And that was the start. And then it was like, wow, this was fun. When's the next one? And then I was really excited about it. It was, it can be contagious, and you just want to do better. And it was just fun.
And I don't know, have you ever done Honu? Have you ever done Ironman?
Yeah, I did. My first Honu was 2008, and then I did Ironman also that year.
That's doubled up. Congratulations. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and let's see, was it windy?
Oh, was it? It was windy one of the 2 years I did. I think it was the first year. 2008 was super windy. 2009, I did 2009 too, wasn't as bad. But yeah, I do recall one of it had to have been one of the top pros, probably the top 20 women, in the top 20, gal that crashed at Hawaii. And I saw it happen. And I was going up, and you know how you kind of come into the gaps where you're not getting coverage from the where it's cut out from the hillside, and it would just blow you sideways. And I just remember it would be you'd be pedaling, and then all of a sudden you'd be like, whoa, and you had to lean really sideways, and they're coming down. And I just remember seeing her just completely get picked up and slammed on her side. And I just started crying. I was like, and because what can you do? There's people behind me, and I'm just and I'm like, she's moving. I hope she's okay. I hope she's okay. Oh my gosh, I hope she's okay. Then just I swear within two or 3 minutes, I mean, there was an ambulance coming. So I don't know what happened to her. And I did look to see if anybody got seriously hurt, and I didn't see anything afterwards. So hopefully she was okay. But yeah, that was kind of a panic, because I knew I had to come back down that way too. And it's a lot worse when you're at speed. So yeah,
that's the trick up once you get up a Kona Highway, is that because of the pu'us, because of the little hills and stuff, you'll be riding along, and all of a sudden you're this way, and you're riding along, and all of a sudden you're the other way.
Oh yeah, you got to be prepared, and you don't know which way to lean, and you can't grip the bars. You have to try to be relaxed, which is hard to do when you're pretty tense and concerned. don't even want to drink the water. I mean, I would like, when it was that windy, I would always have one hand on my aero bar and one hand on the other bar, you know, on the crossbar, just because to make it somewhat more stable. But yeah, I do recall that. And it's funny because a few years later we did USAT Nationals, and we were talking to one of the guys that was doing it there, and we rented disc wheels to do it, and they had discs on site, and I'm like, oh, this is so and we were already talking. He already knew that I did Ironman, and I'm like, this is the first time I've ever ran a disc. It's gonna be so much fun. And he's like, why didn't you run a disc at Ironman? I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, first off, they're illegal. You can't do that. And there's for good reason.
Yes.
I just imagine what that would be.
Yeah. So a lot of people I know, they will bring both kinds of wheels. And if you don't know what we're talking about, it's a wheel that's, it's more aerodynamic technically, because it's got almost a solid surface. But whenever there's wind, you're doomed. It's like a sail.
Yep.
It's kind of the same theory, to tie this into Kiser motorcycle, is almost none of the guys I know on the island ride with a windshield. You know, because same kind of thing. You may have a windshield and it may give you some protection, you know, going forward, but it's just like a sail, and it just can.
Sure.
You don't want to.
Yeah, I definitely, especially you know, the farther north you go, the windier it gets, and it's really, I mean, can be extreme. I remember one time that Chris and I was training for Honu, and it was so bad, and this, you know, because the roads are open when you're training, and you only have so much shoulder, and we were going down the hill from Hawaii heading back to Hapuna Beach, and I remember it was so severe, I just didn't think I was going to make it, and because it was pushing me like into the road, and I thought I was going to crash off the side or in the road. And so I stopped, and Chris came back, and he's like, let's come on. We have to make it back. You know, it'll be a long time for me to come back and get you. And I'm like, I can't. And he says, come on. And so I got off my bike just to say, I'm not doing it. And my bike flew up in the air, and I'm holding it, and it's like straight out. And I'm like, started like, I'm not doing this. I hate this. This is not fun for me at all. And he's just starting to be the calming person, because he always is. And I'm just like, I'm not doing it. And I sat down, and I'm like holding onto my bike because I'm afraid the wind's going to blow it away. And, you know, he had to kind of talk me through it. And he's like, okay, let's just walk it. And I remember how to get on the other side of the bike to walk it, because it kept trying to blow up, you know, up in the air. And that was probably more windy than any race I've ever done by far. That was definitely, I'm thinking, if I made it, which I did, made it through that ride, some of it was walking, but I would probably be able to ride anything. And so that was pretty good fear to conquer, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a perfect story though, you know, because people will freak out, and it helps when there's somebody who's maybe more experienced or used to doing it in certain conditions. Like, it's like riding in the rain. If you've never ridden in the rain before, you don't know what to do.
Oh yeah, for sure. Watch the white paint. That's for sure.
So you, I don't mind. I hope you don't mind that we bring it up. You face challenges like I do as far as health goes. I mean, I have asthma. My joke is now I wake up with at least 4 of the symptoms of COVID-19 every morning, because I have runny nose, tight chest, a little bit of a headache, and, you know, my eyes can kind of be reddish and stuff. Do you mind sharing kind of the stuff while you're doing these races? You're doing Ironman, you're doing Kona and stuff. What kind of medical problems did you run into during those times?
I gotta say, when I was racing, it wasn't so bad. Not until later on. But the funny thing was, early on, like during the marathoning and like starting out with triathlon and Lava Man and all those things for the first few years, the night before and the morning of, I'm like deathly ill And oh, I've told Chris, I'm like, I'm not going to make it. This is not going to work out. I'm so sick. I'm getting so sick. I am this. I got my stomach hurts. I got this going on. I mean, every ailment known to man, but it was all in my head because I was so nervous. And I mean, he would just be like, this is what we go through every single time. You're fine. I'm like, no, this time it's true. It's really true this time. I am really sick. And he'd be like, oh my gosh, you know, remember the last time you did this? And I'm just like, I'm telling you, you don't believe me, but it's really real. But it's so funny because I get myself so worked up. And then, of course, when the gun would go off, I'm fine. It would just all go away. And so, you know, that was that. But that wasn't because of an ailment or illness or anything like that. That was just me playing with my own head, which happened pretty much every single race. I mean, every single one. And
well, my trick for starting races, you know, is we're standing there ready to swim, and I am the worst swimmer on the island, one of the worst. I will look around and go, well, heck, if all these people are getting in the water, I guess I should.
I know, exactly. I was always thankful because the swim is my worst part too, is like, just so thankful to make it out of the swim. I'm like, okay, now the day's going to be good. I made it to ground. I can actually stop and walk or, you know, slow down on my bike, whatever I need to do. That was always the thing with triathlon. But yeah, no, that was the thing. But one thing I was always fighting, even since I was in high school and doing track and cross country, I always had a really high heart rate. You know, we didn't have heart rate monitors back then at all, or not that I'm aware of any. And I remember like we would do certain sprints or whatever for track or cross country, whatever it may be. And they would do like the 6-second test, you know, for your heart rate. And I always be like 21, 22. And they're like, you're not counting it right. There's no way. Cause I'd be put you at like to you know, 20 or something like that heart rate. And I'm like, well, I'm counting that much. So, but you know, we never really, you know, mounted to anything because it was just like they thought I was miscounting and I knew I wasn't, but you know, who knew if that was a problem or anything like that. So you know, I did fitness classes. In fact, in college, funny story, I guess I could make fun of myself. I took tennis for the first time. So I'm like, well, I like playing badminton. Tennis has got to be pretty fun to do and stuff. I mean, a lot of people play tennis, right? And I had to have a PE. So I'm like, okay, this will be perfect. And I had to have 2 semesters of PE. So they had a tennis 1 and 2. So I took tennis and I told the gal, because I played with Chris before and it was really bad, like really bad. And he's like, he goes, I don't get it. You got the eye and, you know, the ball. And I'm like, well, I can play badminton, but you know, that's very soft and slow, right? Well, the people that I played with, I know that you can be, you know, pretty professional with that too. But so anyway, I signed up for that, and she said, I can teach anyone tennis. Don't worry about it. You're going to be able to play a game when you get done with this class. Well, I knew about the game. I learned about the game. I learned how the scoring is done, but I still was so bad. And I could always tell when I was put on someone's team, they're like, especially when we were doing doubles, they're just like, oh my God. And I would just kind of stand clear and like, oh, let them go for it because I'm not going to hit it. You know, I'm going to miss it every time. And, but I didn't realize how bad it was until I went to my PE teacher and we're talking about the next semester. She goes, I just got a question. This was after it was over. And she says, are you signing up for tennis too? Because I mean, she knew I had to have 2 semesters. And I said, yeah. And she's like, you know, I think maybe we should put you in something else. And I'm like, what? So I was like, well, she told me she could teach tennis, but apparently not me. And so she said, I have a weight training class that I teach in the gym. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. You know, it's probably a bunch of guys and I don't know about that. And she's like, oh, it would be fun. It's good because and she was a female teacher. And so I actually got one of my girlfriends to switch over to weight training. And that's where it started for me. It was like the best thing ever happened because it got me into weight training. And fitness, and I became a fitness instructor for, gosh, over 10 years. And yeah, so I mean, it changed my life, and she has no idea. I mean, I should find her someday and just tell her what she's done for me. The fact that she couldn't teach me tennis was a really good thing.
Well,
But
she directed it into a successful area.
yeah, so that was all good. So yeah, I've always been in fitness, but I know I'm kind of I tend to do that. I get off the railroad track and kind of get sidetracked every once in a while. But going back into the heart rate thing, as we would do that testing. That was something we did, and as an instructor, they were always like, well, you can do this during the class to see where people are at. And that's still before heart rate monitors. Mm-hmm. And I was always really high. And then once heart polar came about, we got polar belts, and I was always really high, but I didn't know anything about heart rate. I just wore it, but I didn't know why I was wearing it. I was just because everybody else was.
Yeah. Higher is better, right?
Yeah, and I'm just like, well, I'm really getting a good workout, yeah. So then when I started actually doing triathlon in 2008, that's when I started like talking to people and learning more about what that means. And they're like, oh, well, the more you get fit, the lower it's going to go. And I'm like, I've been training daily for years. I mean, 15 years. And I was already teaching at that time for 10 years prior, 5 classes a day, 4 or 5 days a week, at Hawaii Resort. And so, I mean, I was pretty fit, and did marathons.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I did, someone talked me into doing it. I think it was Mark Allen that had it. It was a book. It was train your heart. It was like low heart rate training. It was a 6 weeks course, I think. So I tried it because they're like, if you can get your heart rate down, you can get way faster. And so I'm like, wow, okay. I would be great, because I always kind of feel, I remember I used to finish the P-Mans. I would always, for the first 2 or 3 years, would puke across the line. Like I would be running across the line and keep running because I knew I was going to throw up. And because my heart rate was so high. And so I did that for 6 weeks. And unfortunately, the only thing it got me was poor fitness. I lost so much fitness. I couldn't get up. I remember one of the things though is you couldn't get your heart rate, and my number was 160. And so you could run, but you couldn't get over 160. Well, I couldn't run at all, because quick as I start jogging, it would go up to 160. And so I have to start, walking again. And so that went on for an entire month or 6 weeks. And so I finally just said, screw this. I can't keep doing this and getting nowhere and not getting any benefit. And then plus it took me quite a long time, like several months, to gain the fitness back that I lost from taking that amount of time off. But yeah, so that was the thing. And that was the one thing that when we talk about all these years, didn't know what was wrong, but it was definitely different than everybody else. And because when I did Ironman, my average heart rate for the bike was 187. Oh. And that's for, 6 hours. And, that's really high. And I would talk to people and they would just not believe me. They're just like, yeah, there's something wrong with your monitor. There's no way you could keep that heart rate for that long. It's impossible. And I'm like, no, I mean, it really is. And I remember one time I was training and we got to the cemetery, and I was at that point over 200. And because we just went up the hill really fast, got there, and I'm just like, then someone says, what's your heart rate? And there was like, I don't know, 160. I'm like, I'm 202 right now. And they're just like, no way. And this guy, I'm sure you know who he is. He's a male nurse. And he's like, there's no way. And he took his heart rate band off, and I put it on because he didn't believe it. And he was just like, and then he saw at that point, it was already down to the 190s, but he couldn't believe it. He's like, I don't want to ride with you anymore. This is just not good. I'm not kidding. So that's when I finally went and saw a doctor, that there's something going on here. which, and then I started having a fear because everybody else was like kind of freaking out that it was so high that made me kind of like nervous about it.
Yeah.
Like, am I going to hurt myself? Because, you know, I certainly don't want to do that. And then from there, I saw they did some testing, but there wasn't really I think at that time, no cardiologist here. And so I never did a stress test or any of those things, and nothing was really found. So I kind of let it go. But then around 2011, I started getting tired a lot, like really tired. And so I kind of just quit triathlon and started just cycling, because I knew on the bike I could just manage, and I was still doing pretty well in cycling. And so after that, I decided to go see another doctor. And on this island, it's kind of hard because there's not many doctors here, for one. And yeah, so I went to a doctor, and I did all kinds of blood testing. I was low on I am on vitamin, and Laura was talking about this, vitamin D, which I was like, how is that even possible? Because I'm outside all the time. And I assume it is from the sunscreen, because you got a layer over your skin, you're blocking those rays. But yeah, that was interesting. And then also they said, you're kind of premenopausal, you're almost 40, you're going to start feeling it. They kind of shrug it off a little bit. And so I was just thinking, well, there's no way. This is definitely a change. I mean, this is, my pupper sees someone walking down the street.
Dogs are welcome.
Yeah. But, yeah. So, anyway, I didn't know what else to do. So I kind of just did my own thing, and it kept getting worse. So then I quit racing, and, because I was getting just so tired and fatigued, and it was really bad. And then I got pregnant, so I wasn't premenopausal because we weren't really, being cautious, because I thought I was premenopausal. And, I mean, I am 40 at that point, 42. And
you already had 2 kids? I can't remember how many kikis.
Yeah, 2. So a total of 3 now.
What's the first? What are the names of the first 2? I can't remember.
My oldest is Skylar. She's 19. And then I have Tristan, and she's 18. And then I have Aspen, who's now 3. Yeah. Thank
you for naming a child after a place I lived for 25 years.
Love Colorado. Love it. But yeah, so I didn't really do much until after I had Aspen. I started riding again, and then the fatigue just kept happening. And I would even mention it to people I was riding with that's close to me, and they all know it, that it was like, gosh, I'm so tired. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm just like really tired. I mean, it would have to be like a complete force thing to do. And I'd ride still pretty well, but then I'd be shot the rest of the day. And so I finally, this is my answer. I went to Dr. Traub. And
Mike, yeah.
Yeah. And so he did some testing that no one else did. And he found out I had Hashimoto's, and which I had no idea what even was. But then, so we started treating that, because you kind of treat the symptoms because there's no cure. Yeah. And it still wasn't, it was like I was getting worse. And I got to the point where just walking, I mean, I think of focus on every step, and I was sleeping, 10 to 12 hours a day. I was so exhausted. Luckily, Aspen sleeps a long time, so I'd go to bed quick as she went to bed, and I would wake up before she did. And I'm like, I don't know. And he says, let's test, let's do some more testing. And I tested positive, a blood test for lupus, but I'm not considered having lupus because I don't have all the things that involves that. And my dad actually died of lupus. So, we keep checking just to make sure other things doesn't happen. But so, because even though you test positive doesn't mean you necessarily have it. Mm-hmm. You have to meet certain criteria as well. But And then he says, okay, I'm gonna do a test for Lyme disease. He goes, just rule it out. I know you don't have it. We're gonna do it just to rule it out, because what some of the symptoms was saying. Well, he did the Lyme test. It came back positive, and I'm just like, what the heck? So I have chronic Lyme because I must have gotten it a long time ago because I hadn't got bitten by a tick or been in a place to get bit by a tick for many years. And growing up where I grew up, I've pulled off many ticks in my scalp, attached. It was very common because we played in the woods.
Yeah.
We didn't have internet. We went out and played outside. But yeah, so that was news to me. So we started a regimen, got antibiotics. I did 6 weeks of antibiotics. I did all these other little tinctures and all these things, and that was horrible. It was really a hard time, but I got through it and still didn't really notice a difference. And so we waited several months, actually probably a year, and we retested. I'm still positive. So so pretty much you just fight the symptoms. I mean, or you treat the symptoms, but there's not a cure. But if you treat the symptoms, whatever you're treating with can lead to side effects. So then you weigh whether the side effects is better than the symptoms. Which one's worse. And for me, I'm very sensitive on with medication, like my stomach, or even vitamins, like the vitamins that you read on the bottle that says, you can take with or without food because it won't irritate your stomach. Well, it irritates my stomach, and so it's just I got to be very cautious on what I can take, and pretty much we're treating it now with supplements. But even some of the supplements that I'm finding that they're bothering my stomach, even though they don't supposed to.
Yeah.
So it's just been difficult, but I got to say the last couple months I've been feeling better. So that's a good sign. I'm still fatigued. When I say better, it's not like you're back to 100%, you're like 40%,
Yeah.
It's like ways to go. But
have you ever connected with Angela Nath?
No.
Because
No,
she's I'll reach out to her to have her look at the show and stuff, because she's an Ironman pro athlete, and that's her whole thing is having Lyme's disease.
I think I read an article about her that she got it and then she got treatment for it right away.
Yeah, but apparently she still fights it. But I'll reach out and find her.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, because I just never knew I had it in the first place. If I had it back in the day, I don't know if back there if they would even, because it never really was in the out in the open and until recently. So I don't even know if we would even got treatment for it, because we wouldn't even know what I was battling, and I don't recall ever being affected, and I never was actually bothered until later in life. But I think Lyme disease can mess with your heart and things like that, and it's not a autoimmune disease per se, but it turns into your body like one, in which can create other autoimmune diseases, which which very well could be why I have Hashimoto's. It's hard to say because it's all so vague, and there's no concrete stuff for it. And after I had Aspen, about 6 months after, this is totally aside from that, but it can be caused also. I was diagnosed with POTS as I was getting more of the heart stuff going on. And it's something I've never heard of.
What's POTS?
It is when which I know we've all went through this, where when you get up quickly suddenly and you feel like you're going to pass out, that kind of feeling where you kind of black out for a second. And you got to oh, okay, take a moment. It's like that, but it happens all the time, 50 times a day. And so I was it didn't start out 50 times a day. It's started slowly, and it started getting worse. And I would have to sit down. And I remember one time biking, I had to get down on the ground and sit down. Because there was nothing to sit down on. I had to lay sit in the road, just whoa, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And end up my blood pressure is also, was always normal, always. But after Aspen, for some reason now it's in the 90s over 60s, which is really low. I mean, it's a low average, but it's better to be low, I guess, than high, right? But yeah, and so I remember going to Dr. Derby's office, the cardiologist here, and you know, he's awesome. And it was 86 over 50 something. And he's like, this is really low. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm gonna pass out right now. And he's just like, yeah. So and then we did some testing and stuff, and he said it could be brought on by pregnancy or trauma. So the only trauma that I've had was like pregnancy, right? As a 43-year-old. And so yeah, it's kind of funny. It's not funny, but I mean, I think just because you have one thing, it kind of makes you more apt to get something else because your body's already kind of breaking itself down.
Yeah.
With that, we somewhat got that under control now, which is good. I took medicine to raise my blood pressure, and I took you have to work your way up to the highest dose, and I did that. And even on the highest dose, I was like 105 over 68. And
which a lot of people would kill for to get that.
Yeah, it's really low. And so, but then I started getting like bloating and gaining weight and like, okay, I know. And I looked at the side effects. And I'm like, I see, boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, I wonder if so I started slowly backing back off the medicine. And now I'm almost always in the 90s over low 60s, sometimes upper 50s, but it's a lot more tolerable. It's better than the 80s over 50s. There's a big difference, believe it or not, between that and then in the 90s. But
has anybody ever? I mean, as bad as our medical system can be, especially when it comes to women, has anybody just kind of in the past said to you, "Oh, you have chronic fatigue syndrome"?
At first, until we started getting blood tests that shows for sure instances of these high antibodies, and that was like when I went to the first doctor that said, oh, you're kind of menopausal, you're in almost 40, you probably have fatigue, and he said that's kind of what I got, and wasn't much help. And I don't want to name anybody because it's a small island, but we got to all go who works best for us. But Trov's been the most one, like he's like a bulldog. We're gonna figure this out. I might not figure out this today, but I'm going to try to help you the best I can. And even though he's still like going, I'm kind of a mystery, at least we're getting somewhere and I'm feeling better. And Derby's was great because he's done triathlon, and he's very aware of the athlete body. And he said my heart rate was so high because we did all like stress tests and all that kind of stuff. I have SVTs and things like that, and I have a heart arrhythmia, which I didn't know I had. And he said your heart rate's so high because there's some regurgitation in there. So your heart is not getting enough oxygen and blood. So it has to work so much harder and faster to get the blood to it to supply your body. And so that's why when you're exercising, because sometimes when I would ride, it would be like, we would go on a really hard sprint. I used to do the Saturday group, the club ride, and we'd go really hard. And I was like, I am not letting go. I'm going to hang on to these guys no matter. I'm going to kill myself. And I thought literally I was going to actually kill myself eventually if I kept doing that. And because my heart rate would get so high, and then sometimes things would go black just for a moment. And I'm just like going, oh my God, please come back. And it would just be like a second, but, and I'd be stinging all over from head to toe. And I'm like, I never passed out. But you don't know what that is, and it can't be good. You think, it's a warning sign, like a red flag, stop. And so I'm like, there's been times where I started getting chest pain, and I'd be like, should I say something? I mean, this is pretty bad. And I wouldn't, because I didn't want to be embarrassed. And and it started often, because I'm like, oh, I'd be saying something every time we ride if I said something. But I told that all to Derby's, and he was just like, well, it's just because when you get to that point, it just, all the things start happening, and then you do get the chest pain. You're not efficient, so your heart's going to be just pounding. And so his suggestion was, he's like, I there's really not a surgery that I can do for you or anything like that. But what you can do is just don't hit those levels, which was really hard to hear. And I'm just like, yeah. And I asked him, I said, well, will I kill myself if I just keep doing it because I've done it so long. I've been doing this for a long time like this. And he goes, did you have all the chest pain 10 years ago? And I'm like, no, that just kind of happened the last couple of years. And he's like, it's like you're getting warning signs. And he goes, if it was me and knowing what I know, I would not be letting my heart, even though I could do it, I wouldn't do it because, you know, you got this baby here and, you know, and that was when he said that, it was like, yeah, I mean, there's more than just me, right? I got my family and, you know, my parents, Chris's parents are, I mean, they won't be around when Aspen gets out of school. I mean, I like to say they would be, and they kind of hit a record on the age, but, you know, I got to stay around. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it was just kind of an interesting, you know, learning experience. In fact, he does want me to go to the mainland to get some work done in Denver, just to see if there's anything else that could be done. But now it's under control because I know about it, and I know that I got to keep it low, you know, just as a precaution. Although I still like to be doing these club rides, but I know if I did them, I would just be in trouble because I just love that so much, you know, the competitiveness, and they are competitive. But
Well,
yeah,
I think that's the key to a person, not just as an athlete. Triathletes are notorious for not wanting to stop. And
right.
you have that competitive nature, and no, tell me anything but that. Tell me anything,
Right,
you know,
right.
but that
Yeah.
stuff. Well, that kind of leads us into because you talked about the bike and how good you are. You are excellent on the bike. How, I can't remember if HCC started the Dragon or if you started the Dragon or who actually started that.
Well, I watched this race called the Dirty Dozen on YouTube, and it's out of Pittsburgh. And it was like the coolest thing I've ever seen. I mean, I'm like, I get Chris, I'm like, you got to come here and see this. And we're watching this race, and they got cowbells, and they're going up these cobbled streets. That's like, it's like, I don't know, 22%. And there's like so many people, and they're falling off the bikes. And I mean, it's like carnage. And I'm like, I want to do that. And he was just like, he's like, how are you going to do that? And the whole nature of that race is you get points for all these hills. There's actually, it's called the Dirty Dozen, but there was 13 hills, and they said they don't know why they did that, but it just worked out that way. But it was really interesting to me, and the fact that they ride neutral to each hill, and then they race the hill, then they ride neutral to the next one, and they cheer everybody else coming up. So I'm like, you know, this is a way that you could bring all levels. You could bring the recreational rider, the weekend warriors, and the elite riders, you know, such as Penn, out here, and they could all see each other. Because I mean, typically, if you're in a race, a road race here on the islands, which they haven't been that many, once you're a half mile into the course, you don't see anybody until the end, right? And they've probably already gone home. For some people. So this is a way that I thought we could all stay together and just cheer each other on, and really just get a kind of camaraderie with the whole, you know, just the cyclists in general. And I brought it to HCC, a club meeting we did down in Kalkakua Bay. And I'm like, hey, I got this idea, and I want you guys to do it, and I'll run it, you know. Can you guys do this? And, you know, Dan and Tom was the main two people back then. And Dan's like, I like it. So, and Tom's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then it kind of got to logistics. And at the meeting, after I talked to them, I talked to everybody at HCC and said, hey, would you guys be interested in something like this? And I told them about it.
Just to insert, the HCC is Hawaii Cycling Club here on the Big Island.
Right. And so I asked them if they'd be interested to do it. I think the Pittsburgh race is 36 miles of racing. And I said, just to do it on a smaller scale, shorter heels, you know, you're not going to have these 22% grades that's last, you know, for a half mile. I mean, you know, would you guys be interested? Everybody was in. And so I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's figure out how to do this. And then I just started, you know, we started riding down south, and we were like, oh, this is a good hill. This is a good hill. And I'm like, all the hills are right here. It's perfect because it's really wide shoulders, and the places that don't have shoulders don't have traffic. And so it worked out really well. I didn't know, even though people were like, seemed like they were all into it, when we finally put it up on USA Cycling, if anybody was going to sign up. Are they just saying that to be nice because they don't want to hurt my feelings, And everybody was like in. And the cool thing was I got the coffee talkers, I got the weekend warriors, some people we never even heard of before out there. It was wonderful. And I just thought it was so exciting to bring all these levels together and just to see all these smiling faces. And some of my favorite people, is the athletes on this island are just good people. And it was great. And it's been going strong. In fact, this past year, luckily we got it in before all this COVID stuff started happening. It was that one. Tryptophan goes within minutes, but this one, I think we was full within a week, something like that. It was really fast because typically it took 2 or 3 weeks to fill it. So
I think people have to think seriously before they take on the Dragon Challenge.
Well, the funny thing is like people that do it for the first time, they always they hit that first hill like all out. And I may even try to tell them ahead of time at the athlete meeting, you're gonna just be forewarned, take your time on that first hill because, there's 9 of these and don't blow yourself up. And I always have, because sometimes you just I know as a racer, when I was racing, especially time trials, is don't go too hard out of the box. Everybody always says that. Don't go too hard out of the box. You'll burn yourself up and you're on fumes all the way in. And I never really learned that technique properly. I would always just be on the fumes and just like going, oh my gosh, I would be so great if I had a technical right now. If I had a flat tire, it'd be awesome. I would think those things, I'm sure all these people think, things like that. I would just like, what if I could just stop on the side of the road and just pretend something's wrong with my bike? It was like, I actually had those thoughts before too. Never done it, but I thought about it. But
hoping for that flat tire.
Yeah. But it was kind of funny. But I always have people like, oh my gosh, you weren't kidding, because it's, even though it's really short, a full effort's a full effort,
And how many people did it last time?
We have a 50 athlete limit, so 50 each year.
And you do have to get permits for it and stuff, I think.
Yeah, we get insurance and permits, and so yeah, there's all that. And then the county they came through. They cut back all the brush back there. They were so cool. It was great.
That's good. And you have it. Did Johnny do it? We have one guy on the island that does it.
Every year on his fixie. We actually do an award just for him, and I know he's the only one going to do that. And I'd still do the award because I mean, holy cow! To see someone on a fixed gear, and that last grade I think is 20% thereabouts.
Yeah.
And to see him going up that thing, oh my gosh! And so I mean, he gets a trophy for real.
Yeah, I notice every time that somebody new does the race, they say exactly. They post and say exactly what you said. I went out too fast.
Oh yeah, it's so easy to do. We all know how that's, you get kind of wrapped up, and you see Penn going out, his moderate is, everybody else's, over the top, red line, for anyone else. And so you just can't use that as your beacon, you gotta set your beacon quite a ways back, to really be, otherwise I always tell people on that particular event to find pre-write it if you can, find which one you feel most confident on or comfortable, and kind of like gauge yourself and wait for that hill, not to go hard on, you still want to definitely put your efforts out, but maybe the hill prior kind of just back off just a tiny bit, so you can have full power on the one that you think, especially if you're because you only the top 10 gets points and that's it. So and some people just all they want to do is get 1 point during the whole event, and which is hard to do, it really is. You think that's easy, but it's like there's so many competitive riders, it's hard to do. So so that's typically the goal on that one.
And you basically, I mean, you put it on, it's you Kiser Motorcycles, you sponsor it, you get the awards.
Well, I got to give kudos to Tom Solis, because Tom does so much behind the scenes. He does the insurance, he gets the website going to so people can sign up, and so he's like full on in charge of registration and all that stuff. And I just run it when I get there, and of course there's the ordering the trophies and all that kind of stuff. But to me, that job isn't that race is kind of easy to put on, because I got Tom's help for one, because I don't have to do the website, I don't have to do the registration. Yeah. Versus Tryptophan, which is a tremendous amount of work, which it really is entirely me.
Let's talk about Tryptophan then.
Okay.
I think this is from 2014, I think. And this was the 7th year. So it's been going quite a while.
Right. Well, the first year, P-Man did this back in the day, this event. And then I talked to him about it. But I think it was just kind of getting harder because there's more traffic on the highway. And he just quit doing the triathlon portion, and he stuck to the biathlons.
And it was in competition too with the HawaiiUltra trail run. I think had been going on for a while, and I know Path, who I've worked for in the past and stuff. We kind of took it over and stuff. So there was another race that day. It's done on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah. So, but we started doing it with just our employees. Hey, you guys want to go do a triathlon? And it was totally makeshift. We did it. Left our bikes up against the seawall. Did that the first 2 years, but actually the second year we had some friends come out that we told them about it. Like, oh, that sounds like fun. And so Chris would always win and back in that time. And he would be there with the taking times after it was over, because he was the first one there. He could take everybody's time. And so what we did is everybody just had if they had a Garmin, they would do their own splits, and we just had the finish time. And then the third year, it got more busy. We had more friends. It was like maybe 27 people at that time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's kind of crazy. And I think that year I came to race it. I had my bike, but I'm like, yeah, someone's got to this is too many bikes for us all to walk away. I was afraid, theft and that kind of thing. And I just wanted their people's stuff to be there, because there was so many and it was wrapped around the seawall. So I had the clipboard, and so I did the timer, and it was still kind of makeshift, just like hokey thing, but everybody had fun and we enjoyed it. Then after that, we just knew that, okay, people started asking about it. That was growing. And so, after that, it started to grow. And then I think that next year, the girls made homemade medals.
And, your girls. Yeah.
Yeah. Skylar and Tristan, because they were really young at the time. And we just printed them out. Skylar drew a picture. We cut them out, printed them out, laminated them, put some ribbons on it. It's like, oh, this would be really cool to give everybody a medal. And which was the first year we did medals. And that was awesome. People loved it. And that year, in fact, Chris comes over to me, he goes, because he called me. I was not even down there yet. He went at 5:30, kind of set up some cones and stuff. You better come down here. He goes, I think this is going to be big. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because we didn't have sign up or anything. And he goes, there's a lot of people here. You better come down here. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So I got down there and I'm like, oh my gosh. And Bob Babbitt shows up. And I'm just like, holy smokes, Bob Babbitt's here. How did you even find out about this? And it was like crazy. And then Chris Lieto joined us that year. And I was just like, holy cow, how did this happen? And then they got real. And so at that point, I think that year we had a lot of people. I mean, a lot. And we just knew it was going to get out of control the next year. So at that point, we're like, you know, we wasn't running insurance, you know, hope no one hears this at that point. We wasn't having no permits, no nothing. And because it was just like our friends showing up and we're just getting together for a little runabout, you know? And so I'm like, you know, something happens. We probably should do this right. You know, we have a business and all this stuff. And so, yeah, after that point, we kept it to 100 athletes because to really just kind of keep, because the thing is, when you have 100 athletes on that short of a course, on the bike, everybody's going to be close together. And, you know, theoretically, we say no drafting. It's really almost impossible not to bunch up because you're going to always, must be a walker again, but you're going to always just stop at the red, because we do stop at all the red lights and all that, as you know. And
the best photo, excuse me, in West Hawaii today was a Bree doing the race at a stoplight with her foot down.
Yeah, I actually, that picture I saved because I'm like, no matter how good you think you are, the best of the best puts their foot down and stops at the red light, you know? And so it's of course her. And I remember whoever I was talking to that was doing that, I think it was the Parisis was running that particular, taking those pictures that particular day. And they told me, and she said, Bree came up, it just turned red. And she said it like took 2 minutes. So, I mean, she truly was there a long time. I mean, she was because it was like cars and everything. So a lot of this, we still don't call this a race because you still have to follow, even though we're going a different direction, because now the roads has changed. There's really not a turnaround point. It's just too dangerous because there's more people on the roads to have it turn after the airport like we used to.
Yeah, I think that was a good call when you changed the bike course that year. It was kind of like, nah, I can't do it out there.
Well, the reason why it changed in the first place was, you know, we had Vanguard come and we had police officers come, and they would do the turnaround for us. Well, Vanguard was just busy, and then we called other security companies. They were busy, they couldn't do it. The police couldn't do it, and that was like kind of on a wait list to if someone wanted to work that day. No one wanted to work that day. It's Thanksgiving, you know, they want to spend time with their family. I understand that. So I'm like, you know, we got to make this safe. And so we kind of molded over, and it was also construction on the road at the time and stuff. That's when the road was still, you know, being put in, and we did it. And I'm like, because on Sundays it's busier because you have church, you know, on Le'i Drive. And on Thursday, on Thanksgiving, there's church doesn't happen. So it's not busy and people are making dinner. So it really is a slow day. And we start at 7. So it's pretty early. I mean, we're done pretty much by 9 with even the slowest people.
That would be me.
But yeah, so we did it. People were really concerned the first year. They're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that Le'i Drive.
Well, it's not a Le'i Drive. It's the pit.
The pit. And there was several people. It's like, I didn't know if I have gearing to go up that hill. And I'm just like, you know, worst case scenario, this is for people that's not, you know, typically doesn't ride hills. I'm like, worst case scenario, get off and walk your bike. It's just a fun day. It's not a race. It's just a fun day anyway. And so that's my whole kind of attitude with this event, because a lot of it is luck. People, you know, they're like, oh, okay, well, you know, that's the top 5 or whatever. But it's also luck too, because things could be a lot different the way people hits the red lights. I mean, things could change. So, I mean, it's not necessarily the fastest of the day. It's just who got the best luck sometimes.
And the pit that we're referring to, if any of you out there actually know the history of Ironman, back in the day when Ironman first started out on the Big Island here, there was the pit which you had to run out of and bike out of, you know, and it's the pit. It's pretty steep coming out from where the turnaround is.
Yeah, it's definitely heat up the quads quite a bit. And then it's so funny because you're going to go downhill for a bit, and then that slight rise that doesn't look like much of anything as you still head to Keauhou. I mean, then you start burning again because it's longer, but it's not steep. But yeah, so but then it's once you get over that, then it's pretty much it's smooth sailings after that.
And you guys have done that. I have some of most of my medals now, they all go to charity and stuff, but I mean, you guys have upped the ante on the medals, and talk about professional medals and swag. I count on you for my race belt, my bib belt, because
I was going to say the swim cap.
you guys give us a race belt, and it's got the little loops in it where you can put well, I actually put this into it.
Yes, you did. Right. We got that at the finish line. That's awesome. When we first started this event, it was not even really considered an event. We just did it for fun. And then it became an event on its own. And I remember P-Man telling me, oh yeah, I think it got a little bit out of hand. It just got too much. It was overwhelming. And that's one of the reasons why he kind of got out of it. And I totally get that. And, and now you have to do all the permits and all these things. And, but for us, insurance isn't cheap. It's very expensive. And, but I wanted to do an event. We've been in this town. Well, Chris grew up here part of his life, and I've been here since 94. And this town has gave us so much, with just racing, the people, there's just, I don't know. The Aloha spirit, you feel it in so many ways with so many people, especially with close-knit friends and people that have no idea what they've done for you, and they don't care. They just want to do it because they enjoy it. And so we wanted to do something for people that that maybe was worried about trying to do a Lava Man, and it's it is expensive. And it's expensive because there's a lot of costs incurred, with the permits and the insurances and the, just renting the place. And so I understand that. I am not saying that it's overpriced. It's expensive. And we certainly know that. And so I think they charge a fair amount, even though some people might think it's too expensive, because it's really way more costly than you can possibly imagine. And there's a lot of logistics that, people just don't realize. But, so I wanted to do an event that had that same feeling of, wow, I get a swim cap that's, and this is one it's better than the Ironman and Lava Man races because it's silicone. You can use it over and over again. It's not going to rip on you. And, give them a race belt, which I don't think any of those, they do that. And a beautiful medal and that they don't have to pay for. They can just come and not, because sometimes people, if they're going to have to pay, hundreds of dollars for an event, they feel like they have to be really fit, have a great bike, and be really ready for it. And I think you're losing a lot of people that those people can gain by missing out on having like the mangoes and that kind of stuff. So that the mangoes is what brought me into Lava Man. And I want to do something similar to the mango, but with a bunch of swag, so they can not pay the several $100s, but be able to get a phenomenal medal and also, all the swag that goes with it. One of the best things I think we do is we put the finish line up, the banner for every single person to run through. So every person's finish line picture is them breaking the banner like they're number one, like they won the race. In fact, I've seen people use it as their profile picture, and you have people comment and they're like, wow, you won the race? And they're like, no, it's just how the race is. But I want them to feel that way. And I've had people, it's so funny that come up toward the finish and they're like, oh, what's that? I'm like, run, run, it's for you. And they just say like, whoa, this is so new. And then they're like, can I try it again for the picture? Because they didn't know what to do. They were so, and so it's kind of fun, you know, because I want them the feeling of like, they're all winners and they can get all this swag. And, you know, you don't have to have the perfect bike. You know, you just need to have a bike. And as you know, we gave bikes out this year. And yeah, how did that work out? But, you know, it was really special for the fact that it's just this whole giving. You know, I heard someone say this most selfish thing that you can do is give. And selfish because it makes you feel so good to do so that that's selfish. And I understand because I feel that. And you know, when we got these bikes from these donors, it was so amazing because we were giving bikes to people that either didn't have the money to get these bikes, or that was because a bike is very expensive.
Yeah.
And even if you get an expensive bike, it's still very expensive. And you know, they wanted to dip in triathlon, but they're not sure. You know, because I think you're missing out on a lot of people that just don't have the opportunity. And so, providing this opportunity for those that you know, are unsure or just don't necessarily have the funds because they got so many other expenses that they're doing. It was really great. And we got these people in this event and they're hooked, you know, it's phenomenal. I mean, it just turned into us giving back to others on board giving back. And, you know, then the food bank and, you know, it just, it's a really big deal.
I think it's carried over to, you know, even nowadays, everybody's kind of, you know, things are a little sketchy to say the least. But, you know, I've had people like Bree has offered to go to the Bodhi tree and bring me food and stuff like that. And it's all still our ohana. And we're all thinking of each other. You guys have provided the venue for people to experience something, not only the venue, but also the equipment for people to experience something that they normally couldn't experience, and also something that they might be too afraid, you know, to be able to do something like this. Even with our Team Mango and our P-Man races and stuff, this is the perfect event, I think, for new riders, new triathletes.
Oh, I can just think of several people that's done a race. That one is not a race, you know, the event that went on to do Ironman, you know, and they were unsure about triathlon and they did it. And it was just like, changed their life, you know, for the better. But talking so much without water.
Hydrate.
Yeah, for sure. But no, it's been really, really cool. The fact that just like the people that just moves on from that event, and the fact that the swim, you know, I've had and this happened a couple different times where I had someone's like, I can't swim and I really would like to do this, but there's no way, you know, it'd be so fun if I could do that. And I'm like, would you feel comfortable on a boogie board? And they're like, yeah, I mean, cause I can only doggy paddle. I cannot truly swim like everybody else does. And I'm like, well, not everybody else feels that confident either. And, you know, we have gosh, Wesley Moore brought out the skis. I mean, Wesley Moore volunteered his time, brought up the 2 skis. I mean, that's big time. That's gas. I mean, that's a lot. And so, you know, support your local business for sure, because these people are stepping up. Yeah. And but yeah, so I'm like, I know we got a lot of people out there that if they feel uncomfortable, there's someone out there that can, you know, be of assistance. So I'm like, you know, if you feel comfortable hooked to the boogie board, just go out there and kick.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I don't know, it would take me forever. We actually had 2 people do that 2 different years that got on a boogie board and they just kicked. And like, you know, and there's other people that just they swim, but they don't swim well. And I know that feeling. I went through that. I learned how to swim in my 30s. Yeah. And so I'm like, there's boards along the way. Just stop, hold on to a board, take your time. you know, wear a snorkel, wear fins, you know, and you know, we don't put you in a different group if you have fins on. It's all the same, which, you know, some people might not think that's that fair, but it's not a race. So it's an event, and it's more for the spirit of bringing more people into this lifestyle, bringing the families out. You know, it's more about that versus this intense, you know, racing feeling. It's not, and I don't think anybody has that attitude at all in that event. I mean, everybody's just so thankful, so friendly, so kind. It's just the best day. And
yeah, I mean, the volunteers, I mean, it is, I think people feel the safest on any of the swims because of the support from volunteers, like you said, at their own cost, to come out with jet skis, the stand-up paddle boards, whatever's necessary. Same thing on the bike, having people at the turnaround point, having people taking photos.
These are professional photographers taking these photos.
Yeah, and this may be the only photo that this person gets of them on a bike or on a run or crossing the finish line. Oops, I lost you.
What was we talking about? I can't remember now.
Let's see. We were talking about the tryptophan and how great you guys are about setting up that race and everything that's involved that people don't realize.
Oh, I think I'll move into talking about what's happening this year.
Yeah. What's going to go on this year?
Yeah. So this year is going to be, it's up in the air still. I do have to make a decision somewhat soon because now that it's got to be what it is, the ordering of all these products has got to happen really early. In fact, typically I start doing it all in June. So, you know, there was the thought, well, should I just order everything and not have a year on it, on the metal? You know, I still up in the air what we're going to do. I just have a feeling that even if things are better, the groups of, you know, that's being it's over 100 people because you get 100 athletes, and because I allow 100 athletes and all of us, you know, volunteers. I'm not sure if that's going to be happening, a group of that big. And, you know, it's going to be interesting on what happens with Ironman this year as well. I mean, I'm sure they're watching and trying to mold what they're planning on doing too.
Yeah, Andrew Messick has actually come out and stated publicly that they're looking towards February, maybe.
Yeah, I heard that. And it's probably a good idea because I think, you know, even flying here right now with the quarantine and that kind of thing, I mean, not many people is going to be able to come here for 2 weeks in advance and just, I mean, because you're losing training too if you're stuck in your house. So it doesn't even seem feasible for people. So yeah, we'll have to, even if things are relatively good, if it's not good for several months prior, I'm going to have to call it because there's so much that goes into it. I have to do the permits way in advance. I have to do the insurance way in advance and all those things. And I don't want to do those things and just lose the money because it doesn't happen, because it is, you know, Kiser Motorcycles does fund this event, and it's very expensive, and but we get so much joy out of it. But you know, it's you know, times are hard right now. It's hard for all of our local businesses, and you know, we're all kind of suffering together, and some are suffering, of course, more than others at this time. And you know, we were fortunate to be an essential business, although business has changed. You know, it's rough, and I can't imagine, you know, the restaurants and the companies that's just purely based upon, you know, tourism. You know, I just can't imagine.
Yeah, I think we, you know, as a race director myself too, I had to call off the Run for the Hops.
Yeah.
And as part of Lava Man, the Sunset 5K. And my guess is that Honu will not happen. It's rescheduled for August 15th.
Right.
I can't really see that, but that's only my opinion. I have no inside knowledge on it. And I think, don't worry, Kym, you know, we love the race. We can turn it into a virtual. That makes it good for me because the swim that would then be up here in Waimea where I'm at.
Right.
So that would be an easy swim for me, you know, because I wouldn't be swimming. And, you know, to be honest, you would probably, I know you would still get 100 people that would be more than willing to show up at any place. But, you know, a lot of the stuff that's going to happen in the future, we don't know because the future isn't now. We only have the present to deal with in the next week. And I know the situation as far as dealing with the permits, trying to get special duty officers, and you're dealing with DNLR, you're dealing with, you're not dealing with state, but you're dealing with county, you know,
Right.
and don't worry about it, you know, and don't put yourselves out in any position that, you know, jeopardizes your business. I mean, our concern and our love for you is for you.
Oh, for sure. And we're not going to. You know, I know that, you know, worst case scenario, we don't have it is really not that bad, right? Because we can just do it next year and really everybody's health and safety, you know, because now we're just learning about this disease and, you know, you're hearing more and more how they're not even know, like with the kids and stuff that they had COVID and they have all these other things that's happening to them. And so it's like, it's terrible. And so we certainly don't want to put anybody at risk or chance anything. And that means canceling it this year and hopefully having it next year when we have maybe a better treatment or a vaccine by then. You know, that's what we'll do.
Yeah. Your kids are doing fine. Are all the kids home?
So, my middle daughter, she's still in school here. They're doing everything online, and she gets done, I think, in 3 weeks. And then my oldest daughter, she's in Colorado. She came back. We were actually supposed to go to Colorado during spring break, and we was going to go visit her, but it was still up in the air of what was happening, and things were changing so fast and day by day that it got to where we were like 3 days from the trip, and I'm just like, I'm afraid we're gonna get stuck there and not be able to come back. And so we canceled. We was able to, even though there were non-refundable tickets because of the situation, we were able to move our tickets to July, which now I'm not even sure if that's gonna happen because, you know, I am working mostly from home. I go into the shop when no one's there because I share an office with Greta, who did her cycling jersey. She did help with those medals and all that. And for those you don't know, Greta Dufour. And so I'm just trying to. So we're in one office. So and plus Tristan's still in school, so she can't really watch Aspen. And so I don't want to take. You know, it's just. Everybody's playing juggling, you know, and so I'm staying at home and then I can work from home. Like we went in July, if they had the quarantine for residents still, or visitors and residents, I could get through it because I can stay at home for 2 weeks and do my work, and as long as I have a carrier of taking stuff back and forth. But Chris can't. So you couldn't necessarily go for 2 week vacation, then have to take another 2 weeks. It's just impossible. And so I don't know if that's going to happen. Skylar, she came and went for I think she was here for a week in March before this kind of went bad and they started doing the quarantine and all that stuff. And then she went back because she didn't have any of her books for school. And she also has a boyfriend now in Colorado. And I get that, you know, she wants to be with the boyfriend, not mom and dad anymore. But so she's not coming for summer because of the quarantine situation. And she's like, oh, why do I go there and stay in the house for 2 weeks? And, you know, if I'm staying 3 weeks, I mean, it'd be only a week of doing things and everything's, you know, the beaches aren't open and, you know, that kind of thing. So she's staying there. And it's her school right now. It's tentative that they're going to be in school this fall, but we don't know, you know, because it's, you know, no one really knows. So, but she did finish the school year. They didn't cancel school for her. She just finished last week.
And
So
she's at CSU, yeah?
she's at Colorado School of Mines
Oh, the
and,
School of Mines. That's right.
in Golden. Yeah. And so she's going to be officially a junior.
Oh, my Lord.
I know, it's crazy, right? I know, I just can't
Chris is
believe
doing
it.
okay. Chris is doing okay. He's a fellow graduate of the Stedman Hawkins Clinic, as I am.
Yeah, that's the whole reason why he didn't do tryptophan last year. He was recovering. Boy, that is a good clinic. They were
Yeah.
fantastic. That clinic, I walked in, and they kind of take you straight to the whatever the patient room that you're going to. But you're passing and you're seeing all these jerseys from well-known players and Formula One drivers and all this stuff. And I'm just like, I'm trying to get my camera out, and they're just like walking really fast. And I'm just trying to get, like, I want to see some of this stuff. It was so interesting. And then when he did have his surgery there, for those that don't know, he tore his ACL in half, he tore his MCL, and he tore his meniscus. And so it was pretty major. And so when we went to the doctors here, one wouldn't do the surgery. So he had an appointment with someone else, and they said they would only do the ACL. And then we went to get another opinion, and they said, oh, I wouldn't do the ACL, I'd only do the MCL. And so when you have everybody saying something different, it kind of made me nervous. And so we knew we would go to Colorado anyway, and we already had a vacation there. And so I researched there and found the Stedman Clinic, which does Team USA and all these Formula One drivers, the top-notch basketball players. They do skiers, so they're really well versed in knee surgeries. And boy, did he have a outstanding recovery from that too. But yeah, that was quite a deal.
He only misbehaved once, didn't he?
No, yeah, I had to get, he was feeling pretty good, and he didn't have to. Nowadays, so I don't know if they do that necessarily everywhere, but they put a pain pump into your nerve, and
Yeah.
it just pumps on its own for like 3 days. So you don't have to have pain medication or anything. So you never took any pain medicine. They did give him some, but he didn't have to take anything. And it was just amazing. And they wanted you to do therapy twice a day, every day,
Yeah.
for an hour I'm like, well, I couldn't, it was quite a far trip from Golden to go to Stedman, which is in Vail, or actually Edwards, where we went. And so we got it locally, so we just had it once a day, but it was pretty, they don't mess around.
Oh, no, they're the best place in the world. My old joke when people, I've lived here for quite a long time, but they ask me, so if you had some serious, injury or illness, where would you go? And I say the airport.
Well, they really are. If you got something that's not something simple, or you really want the latest technology, they are the latest technology. I mean, they're teaching. There's a teaching hospital too, so they teach other doctors. So you're going to the best of the best and what's current right now. And it was funny because in the waiting room, when I was waiting for him, I was talking to, there was someone that they were speaking another language, I think it was Spanish, next to me. And then I found out they were from Spain, and they flew all the way over here to get surgery from Spain. And it was pretty amazing. And it was the doctor we had, he was like, he treated Chris like, because I went to every visit, like he was a rock star. Like, so important. And this doctor, he was Lindsay Voss's surgeon.
Okay.
And he was all these other big name triathlete surgeons. And he's like, oh, so-and-so. And we're like, oh my gosh, you did him? It's just like, it's pretty amazing. But he treated Chris like he was a celebrity or a, top-notch sports athlete. It's like, who does that? I mean, he made him feel like he was, it was pretty cool, I gotta say.
The key question, and I think they probably still ask it, is they ask you, unlike telling you, they say, so to what point do you want to recover to?
Exactly, they did ask that question. And Chris, you know what Chris's answer was? better than before.
That's exactly the answer they want to hear. And that's what they're serious about it too.
Yep. No, the questionnaire was really lengthy, and they had to have all of his information before we came, and because we had all the tests and the x-rays and MRIs and stuff, so they already knew a plan of what they were going to do. And he wasn't for sure on the meniscus if he was going to cut it loose or repair it. He says most likely it depends on, because he's older, he's 53, and he just didn't know the status of, because he said it's really hard to heal from a meniscus versus ACL is a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And so, which I was unfamiliar with any of that stuff. And his surgery was going to only be, I think, a couple hours or so. And he was really long. I mean, it was several hours. And the doctor did come out and talk to me. And he had an iPad, and he shows exactly, they actually got a video of the surgery, and he's like showing me what he did and stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And he goes, yeah, I'll email this to you. And then I tell you exactly what I did after, I'll email it to you so you have it for your records. I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive. But the reason why it took so long is he did repair it. He goes, for Chris's age, his meniscus was in really good shape. And he said it looked like, the tear looked like crab meat, and when it was sore. And he showed me a picture of it. And it was really interesting. He showed me how clean it was when he fixed it, because he was able to repair it and not just cut it off, which they typically do that.
Yeah.
And he said that the recovery is a lot longer. I mean, it's like a year. And it's not been a year yet, but Chris said that knee feels way stronger than his other knee. And yeah, it's good.
And it's to me, it's great to hear that Chris is recovering. You're recovering too, thanks to Mike Traub and the treatment
Absolutely
that you've been getting and stuff. And that's why, I mean, I'm a science kind of guy. I have the faith, not just in science, but also, like we talked about, the aloha in the community and how the community is going to recover. I mean, and in a large part because of people like you and businesses like yours, because you're ohana to so many people. When we talk to people about it, they go, well, what do you really mean by ohana? It'd be like your cousins and nephews, and it's like, no, it goes way.
They have no idea, right? No, it's
Thank
so true.
you, Kym. Thank you for catching up. I missed you so much.
Oh, big air hug.
Big hug, big hug. I love you guys. I love you. I love the kids. I love Chris. And I'm looking forward to whether it's, this Thanksgiving or next Thanksgiving or whenever it happens, that
it will happen again.
Yeah, we'll get together and go out there and racing. So is there anything to wrap up that you'd like to say? Anybody you want to thank or anything?
I would just say that, this is really hard times right now, but try to get out there and get some sunshine, get some exercise, take your families out, I think it's best just to get out and try to do something every day. And I think that's been really helpful for me, because sometimes, for me, I would be really tired, just not want to do anything. And it's like, oh, I got a lot of work today. But if you just go out, and pretty much everybody watches this probably does do that. But yeah, just keep with it and keep it consistent. And then, hopefully, 3-4 years down the road, we'll be like, oh my gosh, you remember when that happened? That was crazy. And, and hopefully, things will just be, I don't know if it'll be a new normal or back to normal, or it'll just be different, and whatever it is, we're all going to be in it together. So, I mean, we're just going to deal with it the best we can.
Thank you, Kym. Thank you so much.
Aloha. All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
Mahalo to Kym Kiser. That was great to be able to talk to Kym. Quite a remarkable person. She's done a lot athletically, obviously, as we talked, and also under a fair amount of challenges, as we all can be sometimes with our health issues. And I want to make sure I figured out how to do a donate button on each of the shows now. And her show, her program will be, there'll be a donate a button for Friends of the Children's Justice Center of West Hawaii today. So if you watch the program on not on YouTube, but actually on Facebook, you can donate some money to them. I get nothing from it. It's just strictly a donation for them. But if you need to get a hold of me, I changed the email address for the show. I changed it to joe@HawaiiUltra.com. And you can always subscribe to the podcast if you're on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and just about everywhere else that you want to either listen to our program or watch our program. So I hope everybody is having a great day, and that you're being active and getting out there and doing it very responsibly. Aloha.